Hey, everybody. Welcome to another edition of Email Never Sleeps. I'm Andrew Kordek. I'm the Vice President of Customer Engagement and Marketing here at iPost. And I want to introduce my guest, Dave Rodenbaugh of Recapture.io. Dave, say hello and give us a quick introduction about yourself.
Hey, thank you so much for having me on today here, Andrew. It's great to chat with you. So I'm the founder of Recapture. I run an ESP. We do e-commerce, email marketing, and abandoned cart recovery for all the major platforms: Shopify, WooCommerce, Magento, BigCommerce, and some other smaller ones. We've been around since 2015, and we've processed over 2 billion in gross merchant volume on our platform. So I know a little bit about email at this point, I guess.
Cool. And I saw you had a t-shirt on. What does your t-shirt say today?
Yes, it says email rules because, of course, my life revolves around email. I have another one that says email is life. My wife hates it. She's like, email is not life. There are so many other things to life. And I'm like, okay, all right, yes. But it is my livelihood. So I didn't make the t-shirt. I just wore it.
My license plate says email in the state of Illinois. And true story, I got it. And I was like, hey, look, sweetie, I got my email license plate. And all I just saw was this. Anyway, so we got a lot in common. We're email nerds, true and true. You know, today's topic, we're going to talk about email frequency in 2023 and beyond. I know that we probably have a lot of opinions about email frequency. It's talked a lot. When we talk at conferences, people always ask, how much email should I send? And so I'm going to throw the proverbial question, because whenever I present, I get the question asked at me. Pretend I'm sitting in the audience and I say, Dave, what is the ideal email frequency? What would your answer be?
You shouldn't send email at all. Nobody reads it. Email's dead. Email marketing doesn't work.
Forget it.
I still don't know who spreads those lies around, because I think it's just for clickbait at this point.
Sure.
The answer to that question is you aren't sending enough. Like 80% of the merchants that I see on Recapture are way too timid about this. They aren't sending frequently. They aren't segmenting their list. They're not trying to follow up enough times. The favorite statistic I like to quote out of Recapture is that in our abandoned cart recovery sequences, I segmented everybody who did 1 email versus 3 emails. The ones who sent 3 emails recovered on average over 100% more. Wow. 100% more than everybody who had just sent 1.
So what is it? What do you think the trepidation is? Because you get email marketers asking the question, and then you say, we should send more. And then you hear the users go, I don't want any more email. I'm going to unsubscribe. They send me too much email. What would be your retort to somebody that says that?
Well, so there's 2 forces at work here, right? So there's us as the consumer, and we're receiving emails and we're like, I don't want to get emails that I don't want. I don't want spam. I don't want junk. I don't want these cold emails that people are sending me. Nobody wants that stuff. And I'm not suggesting that you just send more email for the sake of sending more email. What you should be sending is send relevant, interesting, targeted emails that your recipients actually care about. And it sounds like, oh, that's an impossibility. You know, either I'm sending email that they hate or I'm not sending email at all. Like, that's a false dichotomy. You need to start thinking about, how can I connect with my audience? How can I make this personal and relevant and interesting to them? And it isn't just firing discount codes either. You have to actually spend some time and understand your customers. And I think that's the disconnect right there.
But if we're talking about behavioral based, right? Somebody takes an action, they go browse the site, they go download a white paper, they go put something in their cart. When we start talking about relevant and interesting emails, sending more email from that perspective based off of a behavior or an action, I think is definitely warranted. But then there's that email marketer, right? He's like, but I don't want to bug them. But you know what? They took the action. They initiated that behavior.
Yes.
You should reward. I'll rephrase that. Not reward the subscriber by sending them more email. You should send them more email because they should expect that email, right? They should expect more. Just like if you're being followed around the internet with all the different ads, you should expect that as a consumer, you're going to get more email based off of your interactions with that organization. Now, it's finding that level of frequency that doesn't piss them off, or that doesn't. So how do you tell somebody maybe they're sending too much? Like, what do you look for at that? Or you haven't found anybody yet that doesn't?
No, I think that there's a great measure that you can do. So we're all familiar with that in-store experience of the mall, and you walk into the store and like 3 seconds later, the store, the person with the sales associate is like right on top of you, is like, can I help you with something? It's like, whoa, hey, I just walked in. Give me a chance here. Like, I'm looking around. I may be interested, but let me have a chance to browse your merchandise and find something I want. You have to target them appropriately. You have to target them based on the behavior. This is like the thing that drives me nuts on a lot of e-commerce sites is I land on your homepage and boom, 3 seconds later, I've got a pop-up. It's like, this is exactly that exact behavior from a sales associate that doesn't get the fact that I haven't had a chance to look yet. And I don't have questions. I may have questions. I likely will have questions if I'm interested, but geez, give me a chance to look. And you have to do the same thing, whether it's with abandoned cart emails. Like, abandoned cart emails are great because somebody has clearly expressed intent. When you pop something in a cart, you aren't doing that because you aren't interested in this product. It's the absolute opposite of that. So, you can use that as the trigger thing, but you can also do that with browse abandonment too. Like, you're walking around the store and you spent 5 minutes in there and you like stood at one rack for a while. The equivalent is like hanging out on a product page for a while. Maybe you really are interested in that here. And we just need to kind of nudge you to get off the fence and say, hey, that thing that you were looking at, we're going to put that up on sale next week. Would you like a 10% discount on that? Or, hey, we only have 4 of those left in stock. And you should be real about that. Don't use that fake urgency stuff. That's terrible.
We're coming to an interesting part of the year. Given everything that's happening in the economy and what everyone sees, the slowdown and all of inflation worries. And now we're coming up to holiday, and holiday is going to be very interesting in e-commerce. And, as we know historically, brands send way more email in Q4 because of the holiday season. But as companies might become more dependent on email for sales and discounts to spark that interest in purchasing. If we have e-commerce people listening to this right now, and we start thinking about what would an expert recommend for frequency going into Q4, given this weird situation that we are all in, what advice would you give them?
Well, this particular year, and I would say that this was also true last year as well, is that if you wait until Black Friday, you've waited too long. Black Friday used to be, the singular event, and you kind of just shot your whole wad that day right there on that one thing, right? Nowadays, like, that's really too late in the month, and a lot of people are pushing that stuff earlier. So my advice to you is that you have to find ways to stand out in the inbox. And that might be using certain emojis in your subject line, using really clickbaity subject lines to try to make yourself stand out. Sending emails earlier than you would normally do. Like, you might start your sale in the beginning of November and just get people buying way before Black Friday. I'm not saying to do this instead of Black Friday, but you have to do this in addition to, in order to stand out at this time of the year. The frequency, like, if you thought that 3 emails on an abandoned cart sequence was too much before Black Friday, I've got news for you. That's like the bare minimum on Black Friday. And you really need to tighten up those timelines a lot, because a lot of merchants that we work with will do like 1 hour, 1 day and a week, or 1 hour, 1 day, 3 days or something like that. That's too long when you're running a Black Friday sale. Like, it should be 1 hour, 3 hours, 8 hours. Like, you got to crunch that down. So you should make sure that you're shutting off your old campaigns and turning on ones in particular. But you have to, you can't just sit there and blast your email list on Black Friday and then repeat it on Saturday and repeat it on Sunday and expect that your sales are going to go through the roof. They might go up, but everybody else is doing that, and you don't stand out when you do that.
Recommendation that I would have for those that are listening is, we all know, and this happened about 10 or so years ago. I got an email from Zappos, and they said, hey, guess what? As of this date, we're going to start to increase our frequency, whatever, 2x, 3x, or whatever. We know you're a valuable customer. this is where segmentation comes into play. If you can segment your best customers and either warn them that something is about to come and give them the ability to opt down, or to only continue to receive what they've normally received, and whether you do it to your best customers or specific segments, or, you know, someone would say, well, why not to everybody? You know, this is where you have control, right? To give that customer that feeling that they're in control. So maybe sending an email out before you start to increase your frequency and asking them, do you really want to, or do you want to stay on the different thing? That's relevant, right? Because we all are going to get inundated with email. Now, this may not work for every scenario. This makes somebody I can already see somebody's eyes rolling watching this. But I don't want it, right? I want to hit everybody. But think about this from the long term. Think about March, April, May of next year, right? How many people are still going to be on your list? Because the one thing you don't want to do is lose the most valuable people on your list, which are people that are consistently high value customers that keep purchasing. So as you increase your send frequency, give options to those that are your best customers is something that I would do. And Dave, you made a really good point, right? If you abandon your cart, right, during this holiday season or leading up to this holiday season, they're either abandoning it because they truly want a discount, or they don't. This is where testing comes in, right? Looking at your segments and giving the ability to discount based off of that segment, or saying, look, we need to recapture. Let me use that. Recapture at as much as we possibly can, and that's great, right? So any other things that you would do leading into holiday, or do you want to talk about what 2024 is going to bring us from a frequency? Certainly would love to let you sort of control this conversation.
Sure. You know, one other holiday tip I would definitely say is, now is the time that you need to be like dialing in your segments. If you haven't done that before, it's not too late right now. It will be too late on November 1st, but it won't, it's not too late now. So like, find out like, who are the people that have never bought? Who are the people that are your most valuable segments? Who are the people that come back the most frequently? Like, you should know those segments and how to figure those out in your email tool of choice, whatever that is, immediately, because you're going to want to send different messages to those people. And that's super important. If you're not talking to them in a personal way, they're not going to respond to you in the way that you want them to. So that's, you know, that's my big holiday tip.
Great point. And just as you were talking, I kind of got an interesting idea. If you know of people from, and you do everybody justice when you say segment. If you're able to identify people that maybe signed up a year ago in anticipation, or made their first purchase, let's just say November 12th or whatever, surprise and delight them and say, hey, today's your 1 year anniversary of signing up, or hey, today's your 1 year anniversary of purchasing, right? Now that we're kind of getting into it. Remember, frequency is not always about sending too much or too little. It's about sending the right amount, right? And in identifying that. I'm an advocate for keeping segments no more than 4 to 5. People would say, I need 45, or I need 2, right?
It's too complicated. It's too complicated. If you can't keep it in your head, it's too much.
But you also need a different message for 45 different segments.
Right. How are you going to figure that out? Like, I can't get 45 separate messages. I can dial in 3 or 4, right? You know, I can think about how to address 3 or 4 different audiences. I can't do that with 45.
So let's talk about 2024. No, sorry, 2023.
We could talk about 2024.
I don't know where that came from. Let's talk about 2023 and going into 2023 and frequency and stuff. Is it sort of about the same, or do you think there's something else coming? What are your thoughts and your vision for 23?
Well, that's a good question. You know, predicting the future is always hard, right? And I certainly don't claim that this is going to come true with 100% veracity. But I can say that based on the years of experience I've had with email, if you aren't using certain campaigns or certain flows, you need to look at, you know, if I'm only doing abandoned carts, what else should I be doing in 2023? You know, has my business grown to a point where the flows that I've got aren't serving me anymore, or I need to add flows to that? I think that's the thing, is that you kind of get complacent about what emails that you're sending. So I think every quarter you should just sort of take a hard look and say, what is it that I'm sending? How has my business changed? Like if you were a new business a year ago, well, guess what? Winbacks are probably getting to be appropriate now if you're over a year old or you've started your email list and it's over a year old. Like you should be doing that if you're not doing it.
Right.
And if you are doing winbacks, like, are you just sending the same old message? Should you change the message? Should you segment the list differently? Like revisit this on a regular basis. And I think that's the thing that people are like, oh, email's not working for me. It's like, if email's not working for you, your message has gotten stale. The medium is fine. The medium works. You just have to pay attention to it. So that would be the big thing, I would say. Like, I don't see any earth-shaking changes coming to email in 2023. And, you know, you should still be dialing this in. And there's lots of things like you could supplement it. Maybe your audience is mobile friendly and mobile forward, or they're heavy in Gen Z or Gen Alpha. Like SMS might be a really appropriate way to reach out to them. So maybe you should be supplementing with SMS. I wouldn't say switch everything to SMS, but you should be experimenting and looking for that new channel that your audience sits on. Be where your audience is at. That's the big thing.
I'll give my thoughts on 2023, then we'll wrap up with some final thoughts. First of all, everyone has to take a deep breath, right? When we go into holiday or Q4, regardless of whatever business you are in, B2B, B2C, there's going to be a lot of noise happening. But going into 23, what you can't do is try to figure out a new channel and see if that's going to work, or dial back or dial up or do whatever. I would say status quo, but from what you've done in 22 and what you've done maybe in 21, but this is a good time of year that as you guys plan for holiday and then go through holiday and go into 23, is to take a step back and say, how is my channel performing? And what I mean by that is now's a good time to reflect on what have I done right? What have I done wrong? And what can I do to change it? More testing, less testing, more behavioral based, more data, more personalization. But focus on one or two areas. Don't feel as if from a frequency standpoint, you need to decrease because holiday comes. Now's the time to start really planning. Don't feel like a blowhard like me, where I can say you can do all this stuff. You can't. Focus on one or two things and figure out what's the best course of action going into 23. And then maybe bounce it off certain people. This community is great of email marketers. And we all kind of band together, even if we may compete with one another, right, around how to work our subscriber. And the last thing I'm going to mention is your subscriber is a human being on the other end. They are a human being. They're my mom and dad, they're my aunts and uncles, there's my friends and colleagues that are receiving your emails, right? And treat it as such. Treat the inbox as if it's a special place that you've been granted permission to send it to. So final thoughts, Dave. What are your final thoughts for our audience? It could be about frequency. It could be about your company. It could be about banning cards. Anything you want. What are your final thoughts for people? What's the biggest takeaway?
Well, I would again go back to the original point that we talked about is, if you are freaked out about sending email, you should ask yourself why. Yeah. And if it's because you're afraid of being a spammer, then let's go back to the point that Andrew just said. Don't behave in a spammy way. Treat them, treat the people in their inbox like they're your friends and neighbors and family. Talk to them like human beings. That's going to make a huge difference. If you are being received like a human, then you won't be treated like a spammer, and it's going to make a huge difference in your campaigns. And the other thing that I was thinking of when you were talking about things to watch out for in 2023, watch your CAC. You better make sure that you are doing things profitably, because CPMs are going up on Facebook. They've been going up all year, right? And it's, people are experimenting on different platforms and different channels. So they're trying out TikTok, they're trying out Reels, they're trying out Instagram. And maybe those things are working for you, but I'll bet you your costs are rising. So watch your profit margins. Don't acquire customers unprofitably thinking, oh, I'll beat this at scale. No, you won't. We've been hearing that story for 20, 30 years. Nobody's beaten it yet. Won't be the first. It's basic economics. So pay attention.
My final thoughts, and those are so great, Dave. I mean, and I hope our audience takes some stuff away from this. My final thoughts are twofold. One, authenticity works, not fake authenticity, not fake reviews, not imagery that evokes the use of, hey, I just used Shutterstock to show somebody. Authenticity about not only what you send, what you stand for, and what you're going to be can offset the amount of frequency you're going to probably increase in the coming months. That's key, and that's number one. And I'll go back to my last point is it's okay to experiment sending more or sending less if you segment. Don't feel as if it's got to be a one shot to everybody, where I'm going to increase 3x to everybody as opposed to 3x to people that probably can handle it. That's where having a good solid test plan, and don't feel as if you have to do everything all at once. So with that, folks, I wanted to thank all of you guys for your continued support of Email Never Sleeps. You'll hear from Dave. We'll have all of his links. Certainly go check out his company. There's lots of great things happening in this industry. Dave, I wanted to thank you for your time, for your knowledge and your expertise. Thank you for being a part of Email Never Sleeps, and thank you, everybody. Thanks again, Dave. I really appreciate your time today.
Thank you for having me on here. It was a great time.
Take care.